Hi, I'm Tony Humphreys. I'm the screen specialist for the Department for International Trade, covering film and television, primarily looking after markets of the United States and, in this case, China. I'm joined here by three colleagues of mine who've just come from a session here at XpoNorth, which is understanding and working with China, how to enter the Chinese market. I've got with me David Dunn, who is active in the Chinese market at the moment. My colleague Umair Ahmad, who is part of the Department for International Trade Great Campaign, and Chris Hurne, who works across a number of sectors in the creative area, which he'll explain in a moment. But first, I'm going to come to David. David, you're working out in China at the moment. Can you tell us a bit about what it is you're actually doing in China?
Yeah, we're working, we've got a design company and we're working in Shanghai with Arsenal Football Club, rolling out a number of Arsenal licensed bars across China. And we're finding the process very interesting. The brand Arsenal FC is very, very popular in Asia and in China specifically. So the model that Arsenal have got is they've got a licensing deal to roll out the Arsenal FC brand, and we are applying that across various format sizes of bars and clubs in the Chinese sector.
One of the things that came out of the session we did was how huge the Chinese market is, and how even a small entry into that market is big numbers and can make a big difference to a British business. What's your experience of that in terms of sort of the scale of the place that you're working in?
That's right. The scale and the regional differences are vast and hard to get your head round initially. I think the key thing is that you need to tread gently and tread carefully with where your end result is going to be. Volume is one thing, but the content, the creative idea at the start of the project, where we come from in terms of design, that's the valuable part to us. That's the part that we can transfer easily. The build ability and the rollout of and the scale of the project in terms of the various bars, that's something that the Chinese excel at, and we're working with them from the front end design idea for them to execute that. So it's essentially a vast opportunity depending on how many actual outlets and how successful they are commercially.
And what sort of expectation or planning would there be in terms of numbers of outlets? Have you got any sort of notional idea on how big this thing could be?
Yeah, the investor has intimated to the Arsenal board that they expect there to be opportunities for 90 bars of various types based on Arsenal supporters clubs, which are already populating various parts of China. So they've used that research and that kind of data to influence it. And essentially the Arsenal connection is only it's a theme. It's essentially a bar business with food and the Chinese market, like a themed night out. There'll be music involved. There'll be various different aspects that you would expect in any bar. But it so happens that the Arsenal crest is something very recognisable and that they're interested in, and that's the kind of point of difference in the cities that they're looking at.
So whilst you're primarily a design company, you're actually straddling a number of different sectors with retail, with experience, venue. So that's pretty typical in China, I guess, where a lot of different kinds of businesses will overlap other kinds of businesses. I'm going to come on to Chris, because Chris, you're, as I mentioned earlier, sort of creative sector, Department for International Trade. Can you tell us a bit about the sectors or the areas within the creative sector that you cover and how that maybe overlaps?
Yeah, sure. So I primarily look after our support for UK companies looking to export, and that's with a few key markets, with China being one of them. Looking after companies in the music industry, games industry, and then across the immersive sort of applications of immersive. So looking at VR games, AR, tourist attraction things, anything around the whole sort of immersive economy, which is really emerging massively at the moment. And there's a big appetite from Chinese companies who really want UK content because of the perceived sort of high quality of what we've got to offer. So my role is supporting the UK companies in that area, get out to China and do some good deals. And
that's separate to that, but very integral to it, is what you're dealing with, Umair, which is the Great Campaign. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a bit about the Great Campaign and how that locks into the sort of government support structures that we've got in China?
Sure. So the Great Campaign essentially is live in 144 markets globally. Its basically aim is to position the UK's strengths in different areas, so make the UK an attractive place to study, visit from a tourism perspective, but also to do business with. And what we do in the Department for International Trade is work on the business element of the campaign. And on the international side, it's about positioning the UK's innovation, its creativity, and creating that demand internationally. And China is obviously a key market in terms of where we're trying to create the demand for UK products, services, skills and expertise, those kind of 4 components which make up business. And the Great Campaign is trying to change the perceptions, attitudes, understanding and knowledge amongst both consumers and businesses about how they look at the UK essentially as a business destination. But the Great Campaign kind of works across those strands I spoke about. So whether it's visiting the UK, studying in the UK, doing business in the UK, all of those 3 strands are interlinked because that's how we position the UK strengths internationally essentially.
And Chris, how does it sort of pan out in terms of practically what happens? How do we make those links with people? What does the Department for International Trade and your division do to make those links?
So on the kind of most simple, kind of easy to describe ways, we partner with various trade bodies who look after the sectors that I'm involved with. So for the games industry, we'll work with the UK. Music, we'll work with a whole host of trade bodies, AIM, BPI, the MPA who are here this week, a whole raft of others depending on what the event is. And typically we'll take around 20 to 30 companies to a market, usually based around a conference. So for music, for example, we'll go to the Sounds of the City Festival, which is conferencing followed by an actual music festival. And the support typically will be introductions at the start of the week. We'll have some examples of some companies who are already doing business there. So people like David might be asked to come along and give presentations about, you know, how their journey's gone and how they've managed to crack the market and things like that.
So sitting on panels like that for people like David
Exactly
is
that
a real
kind of-
access point to find potentially newer clients in China.
Absolutely. And obviously working with our network of international trade advisors in the UK who can advise locally on how companies can get involved. And then in market, we obviously, at our embassies and consulates around the world, we have staff who are on the ground to help us there, so they will work with us to bring in potential buyers to meet with companies.
And specifically with China, what's the sort of makeup to support the creative industries? Where in China do we have offices that will
Put me on the
be able to help us there? I know we've got the
offices,
Beijing
we've got
embassy.
Pretty much the country covered. In terms of creative, in terms of music and games, our main staff and expertise are based around Beijing and Shanghai, but we do have people out covering the other regions as well.
So we've got people in Guangzhou, I know,
yeah.
and also in Chongqing, which is
Yes.
more of a sort of less populated area. But that was one of the other things, talking about population, that came out of the session today, which was there are more than 200 cities in China with 1 million plus people. And the largest city, one of which David's been working in recently, or one of the largest cities, is Shenzhen, where I think is about 36 million people, David?
Yeah, I think that's right. That's about the average age as well. It's a very young, booming city, and it wasn't there, as you said, 30, 40 years ago. So it's an incredible environment to work in. Very open to anything really, as far as I can see.
So an exciting place to potentially do business, but
Yeah.
some cultural challenges that you'd need to explore in advance before you go.
Yeah.